عصف الأنين بداخلي كم مرة قد ذاق قلبي من أساه محنا تمر وكم كرهت مصابها لكن رأيت الخير يسكب في أنا كم مرة قد ضقت من عظم الباب.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. ما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I want to start off with a disclaimer, and what I want to add is that unfortunately in today's time Islam is used as a marketing tool with a colonial imperialist mindset. And what we're finding across many sectors is that technicalities are employed using the Deen of Islam as a marketing tool, commodifying the Deen of Islam with no morals and no ethics. Bismillah. Before I start, I want to make it clear that I have seen the evidences. And I have them with me. So, before anyone says, what's your evidence? I have them. And I know brothers who are involved behind the scenes, who are also looking for answers. That will be resolved separately. What I'm going to address is the deception, the lack of firmness on Islamic values, i.e. amana, and honoring your trust, honoring the responsibility of handling someone else's amana. So, I want to start off by providing evidences from the Quran and the Sunnah confirming how important it is to stand for justice, even if it's against your own family members. Even if it's against your own family members. That's what I want to underline. Okay? So, as you can see on screen, there's a verse in Surah An-Nisa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kunu qawwamina bil qisti. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O you who believe, stand firmly for justice as witnesses to Allah, even if it's against yourself, or will walidaini, even if it's against your parents, wal aqrabin, even if it's against your near and dear. Then he says, be poor or be rich, Allah is the protector of both of you. Okay? And do not follow your desires, though you may avoid justice. And if you distort your witness or refuse to give it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of what you do. This verse highlights the importance of justice. Not just justice in its true essence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that stand firmly upon justice against yourself. O will walidaini, even if it's against your parents. Wal aqrabin, even if it's against your near and dear ones. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues and said, don't follow your desires, don't follow your hawa. Don't follow your hawa. Least that you might avoid justice, or you might distort it. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala adds something very important. He adds, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرًا. Allah is aware of what you do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of what you do. Just want to highlight that fact. Okay, before I start, you might be thinking you're dragging on, Haji. No, I want to present Islamic principles first, because ultimately I have the evidence. I have spoken to the brother at hand. I've spoken to the brothers involved in London. I've spoken to various, and I know most of which I'll add in the video, or as the video continues. I'll add most of. This is one of many. Let me just promise you that. Also, what I want to add as well is that Dawah man and this Andrew Tate, Tandoori Tates, someone said, I just seen a tweet, made me laugh, or the Craigslist pilot Andrew Tate, they try to glamorize and add Islamic justification, as I mentioned at the start, that they commodified Islam, they have Western ideas that obviously been raised in the West that naturally we smell the dust or it goes through our nose. And they make it into an Islamic sort of capitalistic endeavor. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's deen is pure from capitalism, which is a system that makes the rich richer and the poor poorer. I want to present a hadith in Sunan Tirmidhi, subhanallah al-azim. Now, as I mentioned at the start of the video, Islam is used as a marketing tool with a capitalistic imperial mindset. They borrow Western ideas and they try to glamorize it as Islam, which is an injustice and an aib and a karitha. But like I said, these haywanat, that's what they're going to do, aren't they? They're going to profit at other people's expense, which in this video you'll see. I'll present, obviously, the details. And as I said before, and I'll repeat, I have the evidences. I have the evidences. The Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, كان إذا صلى بالناس يخير الرجال من قامتهم في الصلاة من خصاصة وهم أصحاب صفة وهم أصحاب الصفة. So the Prophet ﷺ used to lead the salat, and some of the men would collapse, would fall, right, due to extreme hunger. And those were the people of Suffah, so those companions who weren't the most wealthy, and they lived, in poverty and whatnot. And then the Arab, the Bedouins, used to say, "Ha'ulai majanin." These people are crazy. So the Bedouins used to say, "These people are crazy." And then, when the Prophet ﷺ finished the salat, insarafa ilayhim, he turned towards them, and he said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, "Law ta'lamuna ma lakum 'inda Allah ta'ala," that if you knew what was in store for you with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, لَأَحْبَبْتُمْ أَن تَزْدَادُوا فَاقَةً وَحَاجَةً, that you would love to be increased in poverty and in need. My advice is, don't be fooled or pressured or feel low by seeing brothers pitch a life to you, and you're working a 9-5, you're feeling, look, I'm working hard, I'm trying to earn wealth, to the best of my ability, halal, and these brothers have got the quick fix idea. And as one of the brothers who I had the podcast with, he said, perception creates reality. Perception creates reality. So they can push out content with yachts and Rolexes and Ferraris and Lamborghinis in the Vegas of the Muslim world. And you must be thinking, wow, that's the life I want. Don't feel pressure. Oh, sorry, the tafsir of the verse that I mentioned earlier, I'll just quickly quote Ibn Abbas. And Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the believers that they speak the truth, even if it's against themselves or their forefathers or their sons. Okay? And don't love the rich for their richness. And don't have mercy for the poor due to his, state. Now you must be waiting thinking, Haji, get on with it. Just let me present one more piece of evidence, please. Because ultimately this is the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This isn't personal. But when you try to use Islam as a marketing tool, then we have to now show firmness against those treacherous haywanat. So Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu said, "Man arrada nafsahu lit-tuhma, fala yulumanna man asa'a bihi dhan. Wa man katama sirruhu kanat khiratu fi yadihi. وضع أمر أخيه على أحسنه حتى يأتيك منه ما يغلبوك." Subhanallah azim. So I'm going to translate this quickly. The Umar radiallahu anhu says, if someone is presented with any accusations, or someone is accused of any accusations, then don't blame anyone for the suspicion. And if someone tries to hide something of this issue, then that is better for him, as it's in his hand. And place your issues or matters with your brother with the best intention until it comes to you where it overpowers you. Okay? Until it comes to you where it overpowers you. To add, this brother has come forward through other brothers that I know from London who are handling this matter, right? Who are handling this matter. But he has permitted me to bring this forth to the public domain due to the injustices, due to the betrayal, due to the deceit, due to the usurping of wealth, right? And as I said before, they use technicalities, right? They use technicalities, and they have no ethics, no morals, no standards. To further hone in, I am aware of other brothers who they have been wronged, but they have asked me not to present their stories to the public domain, which I respect. Okay? بكل احترام. And I'm going to leave that, but I'm aware of it. So when Umar radiallahu anhu says that until the situation comes that overpower you, this has reached that point now. That boiling point where it's overpowered me now. Okay? So Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu said, and I'll just quote the author again, من عرض نفسه لتحمى فلا يلومن من أساه به ذن. Okay? So let's get that out there. So what's the story, Haji? What's happened? Okay. I'll break it down, and again, this story is very, very distressing. Okay? So to confirm, Dawah man's father, right, Dawah man's father approached this brother who's a family friend, right? So they've known each other, they go to each other's houses, right? And Dawah man's father spoke about a potential investment opportunity in an oil company which is offshore, UK-based oil contracts off the coast of Aberdeen or Royal Oil, but no such company exists. So before I continue, right, one might ask, well, where's Dawah man coming to it? Is Dawah man's father? As I proceed, you'll understand where Dawah man's involvement is. And as I said before, we have to stand for justice, even if it's against yourself and who? Your parents. Okay? And your parents. Let's see if they actually stand for justice, or did they use technicalities with no morals, ethics, and use Islam as if it's there to be exploited. So what happened, Haji? Continue. Bismillah. Let me grab my tango. Bismillah. So this brother invested 31,500 of his own money and a further £8,000 from someone else. So it totals 39,500. So they invested. I've seen the investment agreement. 4 investment agreements I actually have. I've read it. He was told that the contracts would run for 3-month aliquots up to a total period of 3 years. So they've signed, put their signatures on the dotted lines, and that was the agreement. I've seen the investment agreement. There's no details of the company. No details of the company at all. Okay? So let's continue, because I don't want to start and stop. He received a single payment in the first month of less than £200. So that was the first return. And Dawah man's father kept making various excuses about the delays. Okay? So as the months were proceeding, no money was coming. Following that, there was a radio silence of no communication for a very long time. So now Dawah man comes into play. Now this is very vitally important. And I say, Uqsumu billahi al-ali al-azim. I've got all the investment agreements, all the details, okay? And I could say here and now, there's no details of any company, okay? So technicalities and loopholes and, all of these things that we notice that these bearded brothers, a few alhamdulillahs employ. Again, we're going to ask questions at the end. So he contacted Dawah man to connect him to his father, because his father wasn't answering, and obviously because he was in hospital. So Dawah man chose to get involved himself, because it's his father, right? It's his father. So this is where, and again, this is what was confirmed by the brother, and this is why we're asking questions now, because ultimately we have a concern that there are people using their platforms to monetize the deen and use their influence to get money and feel as if there's no justice. There is justice. Dawah man mentioned something very strange, and he said that he thought his father was possessed, thus making irrational business decisions. Okay, this is what Dawah man said, right? So the brother confirmed that as a medical doctor, at the time of the agreement, his mental capacity was completely fine. And when he made the deal, there was no issues whatsoever in terms of his mental capacity. So Dawah man asked, what were the amounts that were paid? So he mentioned 39,500. Now, when he pressed his son to say, look, That's your father who's wronged me, who's taken 39,500, 31,000 of 500 from him and 8,000 from another brother. And that's now an amana. Now you know the amana is very heavy, right? You cannot be breaching the amana. You have taken this and you have taken this money as an investment. Now, I like to ask, where's the investment? Where's the evidence that this money was invested? And I hope I am corrected. I don't think the money was invested. Bismillah. No details of no companies. I've got the investment agreement. No details, no nothing. Not as well. Anyway, the penal code, or there was a book written by the Ottoman Caliphate, or should I say compiled by Qudat for the Ottoman Empire, and it is called Al-Mujallat al-Ahkam al-Adaliyya. Okay, this was written in like the 1850s. It's a penal code. As you can see on screen, here's a book, Al-Mujallatu, right? And I've got the copy from the Princeton University Library. So the copy that I've got is from the Princeton University Library. So it mentions regarding Al-Qarinatu, it mentions that the Al-Qarinatu al-Qati'atu hiya al-amaratu al-balighatu hadd al-yaqin. That the Qarina, which is Qati'a, right, which is strong, it's a sign that has some emphasis, right, which reaches the hadd of yaqeen, right, which reaches the hadd of yaqeen. And it gives an example, which is a good example, and this is mentioned in other books of fiqh as well, that you find a man leaving a house, right, and in his hand he has a knife, right, stained with blood. So you enter upon the house and you see a shakhs, fiha shakhs madbuh, that you see a man that's been slaughtered, right? And basically all the evidence points towards that particular individual. So circumstantial evidence confirms that that individual entered the house, right, went in, killed him, and you've seen the man go inside the house, but you didn't actually see him commit the murder. But circumstantial evidence shows he was in the house at the time, he left the house with a knife covered in blood. Now with cyber crime and whatnot, so come back to me now. So cyber crime is difficult to prove, right? You need as much evidence as possible, because this was discussed by the ulama of Pakistan, that how do we tackle cybercrime in relation to the Shar? Okay, full implementation of the Sharia in those countries, we know, and that's a different discussion altogether. But in certain facets, in certain aspects, they have some implementation of Sharia law. Now, what the argumentation here is that cybercrime, how do you prove it? So, using the circumstantial evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah, and even from the Athar, it shows you that if a person has an admission, or there's so much evidence pointing towards him, then or her, then there could be other punishments as part of ta'zir. It could be habs al-da'im, that they could imprison him forever, or there could be habs for a particular period of time. That's up to the qadi. We don't have a qudat system that can implement the sharia in terms of the ta'zir punishments. Had is a different, discussion altogether. Anyway, so he told him that his father was a fraud, right? And he advised Da'wah to confront his father and to dissociate from his da'wah, because his da'wah apparently, and again Allahu A'lam, that his father is heavily involved, right? From what I've been told by brothers, his father was a military officer, I think, or involved in the Pakistan army. Allahu A'lam if that's true. But I'm going off topic now. So, along with the negotiations, he agreed. Now this is da'wah now, involved. So this is da'wah actively involved now, because his father is unwell. His father was in hospital, remember? So, he agreed to pay back the money. But what's strange is, he agreed to pay back a sum of £100 a month, but as sadaqah. But da'wah, let me ask you, don't try to bring your technicalities here. A billionaire can be given sadaqah. Right, a billionaire could be given sadaqah, right? Because it's not zakat. Zakat are those who are mustahiqeen, right? Those who are entitled. So, I'd like to ask, right, why are you paying £100 a month sadaqah to clear an investment, which is supposed to be an investment, right? That your father put the money of these brothers into a business, which is an oil company, right? Called oil something. What was it called again? Let me get that there. Adenylum, but Royal Oil, but no such company exists, right? So if you're going to give £100 a month sadaqah right? And he said that this is what the direct debit will state. What I'd like to know is, why are you giving sadaqah? Why don't you follow up with the business that your father invested and find out what's going on? Because it's supposed to be returns, right? I've got the investment agreement. So, did your father invest that money? That's the question now. Because from a tijara perspective, right, you've signed an agreement with that brother, or your father did, and you're aware of it. So he signed an agreement that this is what I'm going to invest, and these are the returns and whatnot, right? So the first issue here is, was that money invested, and can you show us evidence of that money being invested? Because that should be easy. If the money was indeed invested, right? That's the first question. So we'll add more questions as we continue. He refused, this brother refused, and said that his father should either provide proof of investment or return the money. That's fair, right? That is fair. If he's invested and we can see the investment in the time period that he received the money, then we can say, well, we can see the investment, right? And we want to know the company's details, right? We want to know who they are, where they're based, whether they're registered on Companies House or whatnot. Did your father actually invest the money? Over time, I had spoken to others, this is the brothers talking, and I started to get to the bottom of this fraudulent behavior. His father would come out the woodworks and start messaging sometimes, seemingly to alleviate his son. And sometimes when I involved people, he started to feel the heat and he would say, don't worry, I have your money and I will give you. And they would give like a random time frame. And this was the time that he eventually became sick. And because this individual by profession is a doctor, right? And he was admitted to hospital, and it turned out he had a small blade in the breed, shafa'Allah, and eventually, obviously, he got better. After he was discharged from hospital, his father claimed various things that were either false or not evidenced. For example, he said to me that he had lost the money and that he had reported it to the police, which he learned later was a lie, right? Imran also gave me this false story. When I threatened him that I would report it to the police, I still don't have evidence of the investment, and I have unfulfilled promises that the money will be returned. Because the bank statements are available. The investment agreement, which has your father's signature, is there. You were actively involved, and you agreed to pay back £100 a month in sadaqah. In sadaqah. Now, this is a business transaction, right? So why are you putting yourself forward to pay back £100 a month in sadaqah? That doesn't make any sense. For a rational person, you would think to yourself, hold on here, there's £39,500 missing, right? Because he's invested in a business. Go follow up. Go to the business, what's going on? What's the returns like? How much are we expected to receive next month or forecasted, right? Planning, analysis, review, schedule. Whatever you could do to find out, to get to the bottom of what happened to that 39,500, that wasn't even in the conversation. It was like, yeah, I'll pay you £100 a month sadaqah. Do you understand? So, if this was indeed an investment, and I say this, Bain al-Qawsain, if this was, in brackets, if this was an investment agreement, then show us the investment that was put, because you signed it, 39,000, it's 4 contracts, right? So it was a total sum. So he must have done it in parts, right? I've got the investment agreements, the amounts, right in front of me. Like, I don't even need to go. Yeah, hold on, let me go into it. It is hereby agreed that the investment is subject in accordance with this agreement in its terms and conditions. All right, so that's one sum there. Okay, yeah, clear. USD as well. And another agreement. And another agreement. So it should be easy with those investments that he received, because an investment is to put that money that you've received into that endeavor or that project or that program, whatever you want to call it. We need to see evidence of this, Dawah man and your father, right? Remember the verse from Surah Nisa, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kunu qawwamina bil qisti. Oh, you believe, stand firm for justice, even if it's against what? Yourself and your family members and those who are close to you. So we want answers. I'm sorry. You're going out with these business ventures, the cave and 100,000 entrepreneurs, and these are the same ones. I checked a few of them. Some of them were already doing the same thing as that, man, invest and we'll do this. Uqsama billahi al-ali al-azim. Don't fall for these charlatans. And as I said before, most of them are, box-headed Salafis, whores of the UAE, or Dubai, shall I say, UAE, I'm a bit harsh. So that man and co, right? We want answers. We want to see the evidence of the investment. We want to see evidence of the company that your father alleged and you got involved and you did not deny because you claimed that your father was possessed. Royal Oil, an oil company which is an offshore UK-based oil contracts off the coast of Aberdeen, right? And this man was a family friend, by the way. This man was a family friend. So I'll leave it as that, okay? Inshallah ta'ala, we hope that you respond. At the end of the day, this is what the brother has claimed. And I've seen the investment agreement and various other documentation, okay? The investment agreement and the bank statements and whatnot. So it's your opportunity now to come forward because it is un-Islamic. It is against Islamic principle, values and ethics, right? It's against the framework of Islam to be behaving in this manner. So I hope to hear from you soon. Please be careful. There's too many of these fraudsters, these Islamic capitalist snakes around us. Be wise with your investment. One brother put his life savings in a venture with that man, lost it and was made homeless. And that man set up a GoFundMe for this individual. They don't want to tell you that. There's loads. Trust me. These people, Wallah al-Azim, I fear for them. Wallah al-Azim, I fear for them on Yawm al-Din. And remember, you have to return the amana if indeed you did not invest it. You have to return it because this is saraq. This is theft. I'm sorry. Because you haven't invested it. Outside, you haven't invested it, right? So take care of yourself. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad.
ليس الغريب غريب الشام واليمن إن الغريب غريب اللحد والكفن إن الغريب له حق لغربته على المقيمين في الأوطان والسكن سفر بعيد وزاد لن يبلغني وقوتي ضعفت والموت يطلبني ما أحلم الله عني حيث أمهلني وقد تماديت في ذنبي ويسترني تمر ساعة